Very cool. Well, welcome to the Beyond Cinema studio up here at Sundance. Noah, Ben, Bob, Brian Knappenberger. Firstly, congratulations on having the film here. For you guys, is it kind of a mixed bag of emotions because you're celebrating this film getting out in the world, but also it's kind of an anniversary of when Aaron passed. So, has it taught you anything you didn't know about your brother?
I don't think so. Most everything came from source material, people that we knew prior to the film.
So do you think it's a good representation of him and all the things he stood for?
Very much so. If anything, there's more that we know that's not in the film. All the people that he worked with and connected with, and only a small group of them made it onto the film. So,
given that he was so present, on camera, recording himself and doing these other things, did that make your job like a lot easier, kind of seeing things through his eyes, or did that make it kind of harder to build that?
Well, I guess both. I mean, it's a challenge, because I couldn't interview him myself. I couldn't, I had to kind of recreate the story based on found footage, and Robert and of course these guys were really helpful in giving me some of that early footage, particularly, which really I thought really makes the film, at least the early part of the film. But Aaron was on camera a lot. He was a go-to expert in lots of different venues. That helped the film a lot, and he's obviously incredibly articulate. So that I tried to put almost everything I could find in the film to try to have as much of his voice in it. If I had to make that choice, I always used his footage.
Did you ever kind of think that you'd become a spokesperson for this community after We Are Legion, obviously, and the Hacktivists, and then this film on a kind of a similar moral theme? Yeah. Did you ever kind of think that you would become this kind of go-to person in this space?
Previous work before the We Are Legion, my work has always involved technology and how it sort of changes us in this kind of discussion. But I think I became a kind of a spokesman for. Not spokesman for Anonymous, but I certainly talked a lot about Anonymous, partly because members of Anonymous are anonymous, and the people want to understand who they are, and I spent time trying to figure that out. Broadly speaking, this is a very different film, maybe similar kind of thematic landscape, but I made that film in a time when that was what they called the Summer of Lulls, right? That year, Time Magazine had as the protester was the person of the year. And I would say maybe the year after was a year of a crackdown, kind of dark. This is another part of that story.
For you guys, what about Aaron's life and legacy changes the way that you act and respond? Do you have like a different sense of purpose because of what he was achieving and what he did? Or do you kind of go about your lives kind of trying to, do your own thing completely separate? Are you part of the mission, or are you just, an adjunct to it?
I mean, Aaron's very central to all of our lives. I don't think there's anything I do or any person I interact with that is not somehow related to Aaron. And so everything I do is influenced by him and what he did. And since a year ago, I spent a lot of time with lots of people who knew him well and worked with him, and I've been working with them to sort of continue his work and have other people do the same. So, I mean, very much so, but it's not any different than it ever was.
Ben, for you, are you?
Yeah, I agree with what Noah's saying. I think that the big thing is that for a lot of people, they don't understand how they could help, and giving this story gives them a little bit more of an understanding of what they can do to change the world. I mean, we already knew, obviously we were very, very close to Aaron, but for a lot of people that didn't know Aaron's story, it's very powerful for them.
Robert, what do you think about, in terms of the way you brought these kids up and the environment that you fostered as a parent that enabled, Aaron and these guys to have that sort of mindset and that sense of purpose?
I think it's them and their abilities in what they do. I think, if anything, it comes from their grandfather and their grandparents, and the world that I grew up in, and the values that are important to us, which is to make the world a better place.
What specifically about the grandparents?
Well, I mean, their grandfather, both of their grandfathers were very involved in all sorts of things. In particular, my father was involved in an organization called Pugwash that eventually won the Nobel Peace Prize, that was focused on disarmament issues and peace generally. And I think that certainly had a profound effect on my life growing up, and I think his interest in making the world a better place, I think all of them inherited from him.
Obviously, Aaron's story is going to continue for some time as people question the Computer Fraud Act and all that goes along with that. Where's that at in terms of legislation and changes and support, and what do you think might happen in the near future?
I think it's very unpredictable. I've heard recently some very positive news about it, but getting anything from Congress is quite difficult, and today getting things through Congress I think is even more difficult. So we're hopeful, but it requires everyone to work hard to make these kinds of changes.
Do you think that what's happened has strengthened the core of people that are attempting to make these changes, has strengthened the community to rally around this?
Yes.
Are you an active part of that?
I think we all try to be.
Yeah. And what in terms of your daily life has changed in the last year? Are you an active participant in this in the legacy and the changes that need to be made? Have you changed anything about what you do to refocus on this purpose?
Well, I think one's purpose remains pretty constant. So I was concerned and interested in these things before and continue to be. Yeah. As I think it's true for all of us. Obviously, coming to a place like this and being involved with these things is a change, but people's lives change, and this obviously changed all of us.
If there was one thing each of you want someone to take away from what Aaron stood for and what has transpired since, what would it be?
I think it's that we can all help to make a change in the world, and lots of us are upset about the recent revelations about NSA spying and improper things governments and other people are doing with technology. And I think the important thing to remember is that we can actually have an effect on this. And there's lots of organizations out there having an effect on it that we can help, and we can participate with, and we can seek out these resources because they exist. And I think educating people about both the struggles and the people working to make a change is the most important thing we can have.
Very, very similar to what Noah said. I think one of the major lessons that can be taken from Aaron is this idea that there are a lot of professions out there that people use solely to accumulate more and more wealth, programming being one of them. And the people who have the ability to program, engineers, have this immense power to do things for either good or to make themselves very, very rich. And I would hope that people would take the other route to try to change the world with their magical powers and not just look after a paycheck.
Yeah. Brian, for you, I mean, you engaged with this Kickstarter community that was so responsive and kind of over-delivered on what you asked for. And then I know you've got this greater goal with the film to be released in a sort of less traditional sense. Can you just let us know about how other people can kind of get a hold of this footage and see more about it?
The film?
Yeah, and the raw footage. I know you have plans for the raw footage.
Yeah, we do have plans for the raw footage. We're as for the immediate plans for the film, we're just now finishing the film, so we're just trying to figure that out, where that path is going to be. But I've committed to a Creative Commons license of some sort, not commercial, share alike, and I'm going to release a lot of the sort of raw interviews, the kind of relevant raw interviews online at some point as well.
Yeah, and obviously you've got this community of over 1,300 people that financially participated in the project. Does that give it an added sense of like being or something?
Well, yeah. I mean, Kickstarter campaigns are incredible. Actually, I believe there's 1,531 people that donated to our Kickstarter campaign, and so I'm immensely grateful that there's that many people that are interested in it. As a filmmaker who's made a lot of films, you know, tried to finance other films or tried to have been commissioned by Frontline to make a film. It's very different to have, you know, over 1,500 people, this whole community of people that felt very strongly about Aaron and his story, just jumping on board to be a part of it. I mean, it does affect you. It gives you this sense that you, it gives you a sense of purpose. Like, you got to get this right. It kind of redoubles your efforts and a sense of responsibility.
Very cool. Well, thanks guys for coming in and spending a few minutes talking with us about it.